Howdy! Welcome to the Deep Space Travel Break, Episode 8, your formerly weekly podcast discussing all things No Man's Sky, brought to you by the Deep Space Travel Network. Find your next travel destination with DSTN at deepspacetravelnetwork.com. That's deep-space-travel-network.com. DSTN does not guarantee the accuracy of provided portal coordinates. DSTN is not responsible for accidents involving incorrect portal coordinates, or boring vacations involving correct portal coordinates. Alright, so on to housekeeping. It's been a while since the last episode. I think it's been a couple of weeks that I haven't put out an episode. And a couple weeks back, I actually had recorded a very, very long one. It was going to be about an hour discussion on variation. I didn't really like it. It kind of meandered all over the place. It wasn't very well structured, and I'm probably gonna rewrite it with like an outline so that I stay a little bit more focused. But in the meantime, I took that time to publish a bunch of other video content. So in case you missed it, we have the 5-year graphics comparison, where I took my personal footage from the last 5 years of playing No Man's Sky and built a comparison, so you can really see the evolution of the game from 2016 version 1.00 all the way to Frontiers, I think version 3.76, but don't quote me on that. After that, I also released a video that explores 3 complete settlements, 1 Gek, 1 Korvax, and 1 Vy'keen. So if you're curious to see, what a fully realized settlement of each race looks like and to sort of compare them, then go ahead and check it out. Now, I've gotten a ton of comments about the audio quality in that video, so I apologize for that. And I will try to keep audio a higher priority in the future. That one was a pretty quick turnaround, and I did not properly double check every part of it. I probably just listened to certain snippets and I was like, oh, that sounds pretty good. But yeah, the gameplay was pretty loud, so I'll try and fix that in the future. So in addition to that, I've also published 2 Spelunking in Space episodes. Now, if you don't know what Spelunking in Space is, this is a series I'm really passionate about. For some reason, I love exploring caves. So I recorded a bunch of cave footage, and I had originally planned to make 1 video, but then I realized it was actually too much for 1 video, and it would make a better 3 video series. So the first 2 episodes are out. I explore 6 caves in each episode. It's all 60 FPS, no HUD gameplay. So it's really, really nice to watch, and I just kind of comment on it. Hopefully, I'm thinking about doing something a little bit different for episode 3, and there seemed to be a positive response, even though they're not that popular. The people that do watch them seem to like them, so I might do an episode 4 as well. We'll see, but go ahead and check those out. Links to all of these videos are in the description below, or you can just visit my channel and they'll be there. But without further ado, let's get on to the news. So in No Man's Sky news, there isn't much to talk about. Sean Murray's at it again with the release of The Last Campfire on Steam, which, by the way, you should check it out. I platinumed it when it came out. It's a really good puzzle game. With the release of that, Sean Murray also tweeted that it's been fun for the No Man's Sky team to watch from the sidelines as, the small team that works on that releases their game. And he mentioned that, they're working on some surprises for the future. Which, they're always working on surprises for the future. But personally, I think this might lead to something at the end of this expedition. Speaking of which, Expedition 3 ends, I think, in about a week, so maybe the 19th of October. Don't quote me on that, check for yourself, but you probably have less than a week by the time you're listening to this. So if you haven't completed that expedition, go ahead and do it. I have a video with some tips on my channel, but there are probably some others out there. You can beat it pretty quickly. I beat it in about 3.5 hours. But I wouldn't wait that long, because apparently it's even more difficult now that more people have played it. So, get on that. But hopefully we'll see either an update or something similar to the Halloween update that we got last year, which was just a small patch, added some decals and things like that. I mean, I would love to see something like that. I'd also love to see maybe a bigger update, such as The Abyss, which released in October of 2018. But you never know, keep your expectations in check. But that is it for the news. So this week's topic of the week is something kind of silly. So I was originally going to do a video on my bucket list in No Man's Sky, but then I remembered that with the release of Frontiers, there were a bunch of, 5-year anniversary posts and stuff. But one site, howlongtobeat.com, which is it's a website that gives you an idea of how long it takes to beat a game, how long it takes to beat the story, how long it takes to beat like a completionist run. And they posted a graphic about No Man's Sky, and everyone on Twitter was just making fun of them because here, according to their site, it says completionist takes 150 hours on average. So if you scroll down a little bit, it says the average was 215 hours for completionists. So I don't know why that says 150 up there, but anyway, 215 hours. Median was 85 hours. Rushed was 87 hours, and leisurely at 220 hours. So I do believe that 220 hour for completionist, but it got me thinking, what does that actually mean to complete this game? So me being me, I decided to compile a list, the most comprehensive list in the world, the definitive completionist list. If you can complete this list, you can call yourself a completionist. If not, I don't even know if you can call yourself a fan of No Man's Sky. I'm just kidding. I'm not gatekeeping. I haven't completed this list myself, and I don't plan to because I'm not crazy. But if you are crazy, let's explore what it might mean to do a completionist run of No Man's Sky. So, I'm going to run down this list for you that I've compiled. And if I miss something really obvious or something obscure, or you have something you'd like to add that you would personally consider part of a completionist run, go ahead and just put it in the comments below. We'll continue the discussion down there. So, first step in my completionist list, you have to complete all quest lines. This is pretty obvious, right? If you're gonna complete a game, you gotta complete the quest lines. What does that mean? You gotta complete the Artemis storyline. You gotta complete the Atlas path. You need to complete Dreams of the Deep. Complete Starbirth, the base computer archives mission, if you have it, maybe you don't. And then the expanding the base mission, which is where you have all those individual storylines with your multiple crew members. So if you complete all of those quest lines, you're in a good starting position. Now, the next step is you need to complete all of the milestones. So I'm talking normal milestones and all of the trophies, right? I mean, how can you call yourself a completionist if you don't have all the trophies? And that's on PlayStation. I guess it would be Steam achievements or is it achievements on Xbox? Yeah. Okay, so complete all trophies and achievements. Then you're going to want to get your max reputation for all 3 races. And that includes learning the complete language for all 3 races, which will take a long time. Now, on top of that, you're going to want to get max reputation for all 3 guilds. Because if those things aren't filled up right here, I mean, your game's not really complete, let's be honest. And on top of that, speaking of languages, you're also going to want to learn the complete Atlas language, which there are ways to farm that, but if you're just playing normally, that'll be a very long time to complete. So, let's say you've completed all your milestones, you've completed all the quest lines. Have you completed the game? Are you a completionist? Well, no. So usually, and this is subjective, but usually when it comes to completionist runs, I say completionist is like completing everything the game has to offer to a reasonable extent. So maxing out your character is going to be part of that completionist run. You want to have maxed out exosuit slots, right? You want to have all 48 normal slots, all, I forget how many cargo slots, and all of your tech slots, which is like 24. And then, if possible, you would have all S-class upgrades. Well, what do I mean, if possible? Yeah, it's totally doable. So, yeah. And then you want to have an S-class ship with all S-class tech and upgrades as well. And your ship should also have maxed out slots, because all of that's doable now. So it's not just RNG, you can actually grind that stuff. So a completionist would have a maxed out ship. Now, okay, this is where I go a bit crazy. If you're a real completionist, you would have all 6 of your possible ships maxed out. That's crazy, right? But I mean, if you're a completionist, maybe you should. But what else? Let's see. We also have the multitool. You want to have that maxed out, S-Class, all S-Class upgrades. Now, you see where this gets subjective is if you don't have any tools in your multi-tool, like say you install a multi-tool that's just a mining beam, technically all you would need is S-Class mining beam upgrades, but I think you know what I mean when I say like fully upgraded. And so that would be 3 of those. And then your freighter should also be S-Class with S-Class tech and upgrades. It should have, again, all of its slots unlocked. You should have a fully upgraded hyperdrive. The tech tree that you can research on your freighter, that should also be completed. And here's the crazy part, you should also have unlocked all the freighter colors, which if you don't know, it's about 10,000 nanites per color. And I forget how many colors there are, but there are plenty to keep you busy. So, hey, have you really completed the game if you still haven't unlocked all those colors? Just a question. Sorry. And speaking of freighters, if we turn to your fleet, it would be great if your fleet was fully upgraded too. So that's 30 frigates, all S-Class, which not too difficult. You can do that in the background while you handle other things, but it's still a pain in the butt. Now, if we're fully upgrading everything, we can't forget exocraft. So you better have all 5 exocraft unlocked. You want a fully upgraded roamer, nomad, colossus, nautilon, and exomech. And granted, these have a set number of tech. There's not like an unlimited amount of things you can install. So that's a somewhat attainable goal, I think, getting S-Class upgrades for all of those. And now with Frontiers, we also want a fully upgraded settlement, because technically, while that's optional in-game, you are going to get a quest when you boot up your game to find a settlement and take control of it. So that is a quest that will need to be completed. Well, not completed, but for a completionist, you should probably complete that. So a fully upgraded settlement would be getting it up to S-Class, fully constructed, so nothing else you can build in there. Full residence, which I think is like 200, 100% happiness, and $1 million a day income, which is not too difficult to do. That's another thing you can do in the background. And last but not least, unlocking all 6 pet slots, because, I mean, that's kind of like an extension of your inventory. Granted, I would probably say adopting 6 pets, but that really doesn't make a difference because you can adopt a pet without any difficulty. So all of that goes into maxing out your character. Now, you might be rolling your eyes by now thinking that's a lot of stuff. But No Man's Sky is a big game. So do you think this could be accomplished in 212 hours? Or 220? What was the number? Let's see. Yeah, about 215 hours. I mean, I think this is doable in 215 hours. Did the people who called themselves completionists do all this? Hard to say. Now, we're going to go a little bit crazier. If you want to be a real completionist, you better have a complete catalog. So when I say complete catalog, do I really mean complete catalog? The answer is yes. So that means, in case you forget, finding every raw material, which is super easy. Finding every crafted product, which is pretty easy. Finding all equipment. Now this doesn't include like the pre-order bonus, although technically what you could do is find someone who pre-ordered the game, have them join your game, have them abandon their ship, you claim the ship, and that ship would have like the pre-order upgrade to the pulse engine, but I wouldn't consider that part of it. But still, you gotta find all these equipment blueprints or encounter them at least. And then you have to find all of this constructed technology, which, I mean, as far as what's possible, I think there might be a couple in here that you can't find. Construction parts, oh my gosh, there are hundreds of these things. Just obtaining the possible ones, not the ones from past expeditions if you weren't there to claim them. And then trade commodities, these are pretty easy if you just visit galactic trade terminals. Curiosities, these are also pretty easy to find. And then, of course, who can forget about cooking products? I feel like this is the one that would kill most people, or kill most completionist runs, because not only do you need to find all of these unique ingredients, which are specific to certain biomes and species of creatures, but you also need to cook every unique recipe in the game, or at least have someone help you with that. And if you include all these ingredients in all of these recipes, I think it's about 280 items here, and I don't even have like half of them. It is a lot of work. Even with the guide to like all the recipes, it is difficult. But hey, how can you call yourself a completionist if you haven't unlocked all of these recipes? No, it's okay. Again, I'm just gatekeeping for fun. And last but not least, portal glyphs, but those are pretty easy to find anyways. So now you've done it, right? You've completed your catalog. Well, sort of. So in order to do that, you are going to need to collect every Quicksilver item in the store. So you're going to be doing a lot of Quicksilver missions. And you're going to need to collect every tainted metal item from the scrap dealer. So that's going to be a lot of derelict freighters. So these are pretty time-consuming tasks on their own. I mean, the catalog could take you hundreds of hours. So at this point, I'm not sure if it's necessarily doable in 215 hours, but maybe it is. You let me know in the comments below. Speaking of completing your collection though, we can't forget about player titles, which, oh my gosh, I forget how many there are, but it looks like there are hundreds. Maybe it's just like 100. And these things range from like every task from like, if you're maxing out all your milestones, you're going to get most of these, but there are some very specific ones, such as the Pilgrim one, where I think you either have to visit the Galactic Hub or the Pilgrim Star to get that one. And then there are some that you have to complete by completing the game on permadeath or getting to the center of the galaxy. And you would think, okay, well, as long as I just do a permadeath run, I'll get all of them. Except you can't, because there are also like 8 or 10 titles that you only get from dying in specific ways. So you need a save where you can die from all of these specific ways, and then a save where you can complete permadeath. So it'll be a pain in the butt to get all of these titles. And you might say, well, I don't really need those. And that's true, but I mean, if you're doing like a true completionist run and you haven't unlocked all the titles that are obtainable in-game without like special events, I don't know if your game's really complete. But speaking of which, in order to earn all those trophies, you would have to complete a game on permadeath, which is pretty difficult. Well, no, it's pretty simple, I guess, if you use the portal glyphs. So I'll take that back, pretty easy. So now you've done all this, right? Your game is complete, you've done it. What if I told you there was an even higher level of completion? What if I told you you could complete all the lore in the game? Now, granted, some of these are actually part of the titles. So for example, if you complete all of the boundary failure lore, you get a title. And then there's also a separate one for all of the plaques for each race. So that's 3 sets of plaque lore, 3 sets of ruins lore, which is different, one for each race. If you want to go crazy, complete all of the archive lore. There is also all of the crashed freighter lore. So when you find a crashed freighter on a planet and read the captain's log, there's a set number of those. That one's a little iffy, I don't know if I would count it. Along the same lines are all the derelict freighter captain's logs, and those vary by race. So depending on what type of system you're in, you're going to get different captain's logs. And then of course there's the underwater ruins storyline, which is separate from the Tales of the Deep or whatever the normal underwater storyline is. This one's just based around the underwater ruins. And then last but not least, as far as completing all lore, and I would consider this one part of the completionist. Oh, you also get a title, so I guess you would need to do this. And that's the Remembrance lore. Now, if you don't know what Remembrance is, it is a piece of tech you install in your suit. And once you install it, you're able to read these terminals in space stations and on planetary surfaces. And basically, once you install it, you can read this new set of lore. Alright, so in order to build Remembrance, you first have to construct a captured nanode, which you then use to construct an englobed shade, which you then use to construct a new spheric orb, which you then use to construct dark matter, which you then use to construct Dawn's End, which you then use to construct a photic jade, which you then use to construct a state phasor, which you then use to construct a novae reclaimant, which you then use to construct a modified quanta, and finally you use that to construct a Heart of the Sun, which is the final ingredient you need to install Remembrance. Those are required to complete the Atlas path anyways, but I just think it's funny how much work goes into getting this one piece of lore. But it's not until after you complete all of that that you're able to even start reading these terminals. So that's not something you can do in the meantime. That's like end game content. So okay, so you've completed all of these crazy lore things and you've gotten all the titles related to lore. You've done it, right? You've completed the game. Or have you? Because No Man's Sky is a game about exploration. And when you complete the main quest, chances are you're going to go to another galaxy. But what if I told you there are 255 galaxies in the base game, and a real completionist would set foot in each galaxy at least once? Now, obviously, now we're going to a point where 215 hours is like impossible. But hey, if you're saying you completed the game, but you haven't been to 99% of the galaxies in the game, then have you really explored it? Now, I'm not going to say go to every planet because that's insane and impossible, but it's not impossible to visit every galaxy. So if you're really crazy, you should probably do that as well. Now, at this point, you're probably rolling your eyes real hard. You're thinking this guy is crazy, he's just making stuff up. But I think everything I've mentioned so far is pretty reasonable. It's quantifiable. It's available within the base game. For a lot of these, there are titles tied to them. For example, to collect all player titles, you actually have to visit a lot of different galaxies because those galaxies give you unique titles. So I'm not being crazy and saying visiting different galaxies is part of a completionist run, because you will need those for all the player titles. But what if I did add some BS milestones? And by BS, of course, I mean bonus. That's what BS stands for, right? So here we go. Here are my personal BS milestones for a real completionist. If you can complete these, you are the most complete completionist to ever complete the game completely. So, BS milestone number 1, visit the Pilgrim Star. And maybe this was part of the player titles, but I think it's an important part of the game. Or visit the Galactic Hub. Whichever one isn't required for the player title, visit the other one. Then, a real completionist would defeat all the Sentinel types. So, we're talking drones, quads, walkers, because you may not have fought those in the main game, but defeating that, well, you might have actually in order to complete your catalog. But what I'm talking about specifically is in space. If you can get a level 4 or 5 security level, it'll spawn a Sentinel Dreadnought, which is like a big freighter, Sentinel freighter that spawns smaller ones and has a bunch of turrets. I don't think you can really say you've completed the game if you haven't defeated a Sentinel Dreadnought. But that's just me. So BS milestone number 3, 4, defeat all creature types. And by that, I don't mean like kill every creature in No Man's Sky, because not all of them are combat leaning. But by this, I specifically mean defeating all of the biological horrors. Fight a biological horror. Fight both abyssal horrors, so those big fish that chase you, as well as the eyeball ones. Defeat at least one sentient rock. Defeat the swarm aboard a derelict freighter, and of course the freighter security, so drones and turrets. So pretty much just fighting like every type of enemy in the game, essentially. Another BS one would be seeing a sandworm. That's pretty easy, you'll probably see it anyways, but I just think that's like a cool little item to put on your list. Now here's another quantifiable one that I didn't include in exploration, but I feel like if you haven't done this, you haven't really completed the game. And that's discovering all space encounters. I think there are about 28, don't quote me on that, and I haven't gotten them all myself. But when you're in space, there are these random encounters, and some of them give you stuff, some of them are trade opportunities. It's just, there's a whole range of what they could be, but I think going through space and trying to get all 28 would be like a completionist goal, if you're exploration focused. If not, then maybe not. So another thing, this is like a self-imposed BS rule, but that would be collecting one of every type of ship. So you can have 6 ships, and I would say having 1 fighter, 1 explorer, 1 hauler, 1 shuttle, and 1 exotic, and 1 living ship would be like a complete collection. Now for completionists, I would say just having one of these at one time would work. So if you want to like have 6 living ships, that's fine, as long as at some point you had a explorer or hauler in your fleet. And for exotic, I would even split that into getting 1 royal class and 1 squid, because squids are tough to find with that. Well, then again, you can get portal coordinates, but collecting 1 of every type of ship at one point. And then speaking of which, collecting 1 of every type of multi-tool. So getting a rifle/pistol, having an experimental multi-tool, and then an alien multi-tool, because then you've really collected everything the game has to offer. And speaking of which, this is again going into exploring and a little bit into a bucket list item, which is discovering every type of unique resource. So I'm talking like sentient plants, talking vortex cubes, organic rocks, runaway mold, golden fingers, underwater relics. These type of things that you rarely see on planet surfaces. Like, they are there, but you normally don't come across them on every planet. Even if they are there, they're just pretty well spread out. So finding every single one of these the game has to offer would be like my exploration milestone. And speaking of everything the game has to offer, try visiting, I don't even know if this is possible, but if you're like an explorer completionist, finding every type of biome in the game would be a goal for me. And I'm trying to do that. I've counted every sub-biome, and there are like over 60 according to my current classification. So that is really impressive. And you'll probably get this if you explore every single planet you visit. But still, I mean, a lot of it's RNG, trying to find every biome in the game. And who knows, there might be some that people haven't even found yet. So another exploration-focused one would be to encounter every type of weather event. If you're a completionist, you've been struck by lightning. No, but lightning, meteor showers, tornadoes, gravity storms, bubble storms, trying to experience every type of weather in the game and surviving, theoretically. And this one, I do kind of consider a completionist one, but I didn't want to put it in because it's very RNG based, but collecting a rare version of every procedural artifact. So I'm talking like bones and treasures, the stuff you get from ruins, the stuff you get from derelict freighters or from frigate missions, frigate expeditions. Getting like a golden or rare version of each of these. Here, if you look on screen, this is like my freighter inventory. I'm trying to do this myself, where I have like the most expensive version of each artifact I've found. But completing this collection, I think, would be really cool. And then, let's see, complete every expedition. That's only if you've been playing since the first expedition. If not, obviously it'd be unfair. Complete all the old weekend missions. Again, that's if you were playing at the time, because currently weekend missions are just 100% procedural. But they used to have these storylines and like multiple choices and unique puzzles, and it was pretty cool. Every week it was part of a story, but they haven't done that in a while. But if you were there, I mean, completing that would be important. And now this is the final BS milestone. This is probably the most important out of all of them. If you don't complete this, I wouldn't even say you've played No Man's Sky. And this milestone is starting a No Man's Sky podcast. Now, I've done this myself, raise your hand if you have. But if not, luckily there is kind of like an alternative. You could just subscribe to a No Man's Sky podcast. I think that would still count. So if you don't currently have a podcast or a No Man's Sky YouTube channel, go ahead and leave a like and subscribe. I think that'll complete the game for you. And of course, I jest, but all of these milestones are just kind of like my invention, at least all the BS ones. But they're the sort of things that like I would consider part of my bucket list, especially like, getting a rare version of all the artifacts or finding all of the space encounters. That's just sort of stuff for me, to where I feel like until I've done that, I haven't completed the game. But, that's the interesting thing about No Man's Sky. It means different things to different people. Some people might say they beat the game as soon as they make it to the next galaxy. They say, I've done it. I've seen all I wanted to see. And others are going to want to get all the player titles. Some of them are going to want to max out all of their fleet, all of their ships, all of their frigates. And once those are all S-class, they say, I've done it. Some people, they might want to max out their wallet. I didn't include that because I don't usually considered maxing out your wallet part of a completionist run, but some people that's what they want to do. If there's anything to take away from this, it's just that there's a lot of stuff to do in No Man's Sky, and trying to quantify it is a pain in the ass. No, but just don't worry about completing it. There's so many things that are just difficult, near impossible in some cases. And don't beat yourself up if you have empty slots in your catalog, or all of your ships aren't S-class or whatever. Enjoy the game at your own pace. Don't get too hung up trying to beat it. It's impossible to visit every planet ultimately. So don't even bother, I would say, trying to complete everything. Maybe, pick a couple of these. But I think you drive yourself mad trying to complete this whole list I've concocted. And actually, I might drop this list in the description below. So if you are crazy, you can follow it. But I personally wouldn't. Don't do it. Maybe I shouldn't drop it in the description. Oh, but maybe I should. No. Well, we'll see. Check the description, then you'll know what I decided on. But that concludes the topic of the week. Let me know if you have some of your own BS milestones. Maybe it's, getting to a depth of 100 meters underwater, or, I don't know, blowing up 100 freighters, or getting a level 3 bounty. I don't know. Everyone has their own goals in No Man's Sky, which is what makes it so great. So let me know in the comments below how BS you think mine are, or what you would add or subtract. What did you think about the regular list? So to reiterate, completing all quest lines, completing all milestones, maxing out your character, completing the catalog, and completing all lore. So that was the normal list, which I think is pretty well quantified. I think it makes sense, but maybe I'm a bit too extreme. But a lot of that's just tied to getting all the player titles. So who knows? But all right, before I finish up this podcast, I would like to do a community highlight. So let me see. I've saved something on Twitter here. Hello, Future Kanaji here. Just wanted to say that I know I make a lot of fun about, how much time it would take to beat the game, but I'm not making fun of howlongtobeat.com. I think it's a really good resource, and I just think that the reason I find this so interesting, the completionist time, is because, every person has a different idea of what a completionist run is, because No Man's Sky is a lot more difficult to quantify than most games. So just wanted to put that out there, not making fun of the site or these people who say they've completed it. Chances are they have, and depending on where the game was at that time, there might have been different requirements too. But just, in 2021, I wanted to see what a completionist run would actually look like with all the 5 years of content they've added. So yeah, it's all in good fun. All right, thanks, and back to the podcast. So if you've been following I don't know if it's called the Tatooine Project or the Mos Eisley Project, but basically this guy on Twitter has been building out Mos Eisley in No Man's Sky with the new building parts, which make it pretty possible. And he's having a meetup on Tatooine in No Man's Sky. So the meetup, it says, is 10:30. Oh, shit, that's the day. Alrighty, so before I close out this episode, I'd like to do a community highlight. Now, there are all kinds of great people in this community, and I should give a lot of them shout outs, but I'm going to give a shout out to Zoo Gaming this week. He's a really cool No Man's Sky player. He does not just No Man's Sky, but other games as well. He's a streamer, so he's always doing streams where he's really friendly. He'll talk to you if you have questions about the game. He's a great resource. He's played more than me, honestly. And he's an explorer type, so that's pretty cool. And he also makes, videos outside of his streams that are really helpful. But I know what you're thinking. Kanaju, you have like 300 subscribers. This guy has like, I don't know, a couple thousand. I don't really know. Zoo, I'm sorry. But, chances are I've heard of him before I've heard of you. So why are you promoting him? I'm just being nice. He's a really cool guy. I've been hanging out in his streams, really enjoying it. And I just thought I would share in the off chance you've heard of me, but not him. So, go give his channel some love. But before you do, hell, give my channel some love too. Damn, I'm trying to get to 1,000 subscribers. so that I can unlock the community tab. Then I can do like polls and stuff and some other cool features, but I got to reach like a certain goal for YouTube to let me use those features. So I'm working on it. But thanks again for your support. I'm glad to bring the podcast back. Again, I'm sorry I missed a couple weeks. It just didn't work out. I was pretty busy, and then I was releasing other videos at the time. So hopefully I'll keep this a little more regular. Honestly, I don't know if I'm going to keep it weekly. It'll really depend on what's going on in the game. If they release an update or something with a lot of content, I'll probably continue it weekly. But if not, I might instead, publish a couple of other videos that are just sort of general No Man's Sky content. But you should expect at least something every week. That's my goal, is to at least put some kind of video out. All right, that wraps up our podcast. Thanks again for listening. Leave a like if you liked it. Leave a dislike if you disliked it. I do read all my comments, so don't be afraid of posting below. I'd love to see what you think of my BS milestones. And again, subscribing really helps. It helps give my channel a little more reach. It helps me reach my goal of unlocking the community tab. And in general, it gives me a warm, fuzzy feeling inside. So it costs you nothing to give me that warm, fuzzy feeling. Look at me, now I'm manipulating you. But honestly, it's up to you. And if not, I love you anyways. But, alright, this intro's going on too long. Outro, oh no. This outro's going too long. So thanks again. I hope you have a good one. Happy exploring. And I'll see you in the next one. Bye. Whoops, almost forgot. Link to Zoo's channel is in the description below. Check it out if you have time. And if you can catch one of his streams, say hi. He's a really cool guy. Alright.